Here we go. Okay, so good morning and good afternoon and good evening to whoever's listening, whatever time that might be. This will be a teaching about the Purim, an in-depth mystical approach to an aspect of Purim to understand about the festival of Purim. There is a quotation from the rules of Purim. And in fact, the first Mishnah of Masechtas Megillah, meaning of Tractate Megillah, the first ruling first Mishnah that's in the Megillah, and it speaks about the dates which are capable of reading the Megillah. Now, this is interesting in itself, in that we normally don't have for any specific festival multiple dates to achieve a mitzvah in. But it happens that for Megillah, for the purposes of the listening to the Megillah and the what we call the Pasuma Nisa to advertise the miracle and to advertise the miracle of Purim and to advance it to as many people as we can. So the Mishnah teaches us that there is a potential for different people, depending on their location, to be able to hear the Megillah in advance or even after the regular day of Purim. So the date of Purim, when we read and do the mitzvahs, is the 14th of Adar. The Mishnah says for people who can't get to the big city at the time of the 14th, where they would expect that there would be rabbis there to read them the Megillah, if the Yom HaChnisa, which that basically means the market day for the local villages, for the surrounding villages, people who are in the rural areas and obviously being serviced by rural Chabad. So that's a little bit of an advertisement for my son's good activities in Atlanta, Georgia, who takes care of the rural Chabad and the people who are living outlying suburbs around in the state of Georgia. So for the people who are around, people who couldn't get to the city, so in the times of in terms of the Talmud, there was the potential given for people to come in on market day, which wasn't necessarily the 14th of Adar. And then if it was market day, then someone would read the Megillah for them. So the Mishnah says that we can read the Megillah. Some people can read the Megillah for themselves from the 11th of the day of Adar, the 12th day of Adar, the 13th day of Adar, and the 14th, which is the regular date, and the 15th. There are specific circumstances for that. The 15th is for people who live in walled cities from the time of Joshua. Again, there are specific technical details about all of those. Now, this idea that we can have different dates is picked up by our teachers, our rabbis, particularly within our understandings of the Rebbeim's teachings, and they say, and they point out an interesting phenomenon. The Rebbe Marash, the fifth Lubavitch Rebbe, points out that if you take the number 11, if you add it together with the number 15, you get the number 26. The number 26 is the same gematria, numerical equivalent of the name of Hashem, spelt Yud Hey Vav Hey, and the name of the Hashem's name, which we don't pronounce as written, and this is the name of Hashem, which is one of the ideas around how Hashem created the world is creative force. Hashem, with the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, is revealed in the world through this name Yud Hey and Vav Hey. The Yud represents the first revelation of godliness. Hey, the more expansive. The Vav, as it comes down into the root realms, and the last Hey as his creative force. This is explained in other areas, and I'm not going to spend time on that specifically at this moment. What the Rebbe Marash is pointing out is that even though in the Megillah context and the Megillah readings, we don't find the name of God explicitly written, but we have it hinted in the text of we have it hinted in the Megillah, so that it actually is part of the idea of Purim. The idea of Purim is that God is not openly revealed in the narrative of the Megillah. In fact, the name Esther, of Queen Esther, our heroine of the story of the Megillah, her name itself, Esther, implies a level of hiddenness. So the idea that there are not explicit mentions of God, but implicit and hidden mentions of God within the areas of the Megillah, and what we're pointing out at the moment is that within the halachic aspects, within the technical details about how we do Purim, in the rules and regulations of Purim, as expressed in the Talmud, in the first Mishnah, we have a hint, we have a hidden aspect of God, in that the name of God is implicit or hidden in the dates. Now, this idea we're going to take further. What does it mean, this idea of that? What's the meaning to us? What's the meaning that the name of God is hidden in the narrative of the Megillah? This, in general, idea is to teach us that God is found everywhere. God rules and controls all aspects of our life, and even at the times when things look the bleakest, things can be overturned, and in one short period of time, and what seems to be the people who are at the top fall to the bottom. That's what happened to Haman, and that the circumstances are totally reversed, and the Jews' fortunes rise to the top. In that the Jewish nation was, by the decrees of Haman, were to be eradicated from the kingdom, and in one instance, the circumstances changed. But what comes out of this story is that God's hand is hidden, and although God is controlling everything, God's hand is hidden, and we need to take off the veil of hiddenness to be able to see God's hand. And in fact, that's why one of the customs for the celebration in relationship is the Purim is that people wear masks, because the idea of masking and unmasking, seeing God's hand being hidden and being revealed, is part of the miracle of Purim. Now, getting back to this, the first line of the Mishnah saying that the name of God is embedded in the dates of the Mishnah, in that the, as we said, the gematria, the numerical equivalent of the letters of how we spell out God's name turns out, and if you spell out and could give a numerical mapping to the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, that is 5 and 10 and 6 and 5 again, which um, uh, that will give you the number 26. So same also when you add the date 11th and the date 15, you get the number 26. So this tells us that God is hidden in the miracle story of Purim, but it also teaches us that our service and what we're required to do is to reveal godliness throughout the world, even though it might be hidden. So that the idea of the first revelations of spirituality, represented by the first letters of God's name, the Yud and the Hey, they are hidden, but as they come into the world, they become more revealed. And it is up to us, the Jewish nation, to reveal that in a total sense. So what this teaching is, as a purpose to teach us, is that we are to join the two composites of God's name, the Yud Hey and the Vav Hey, so that there should be a union between the hidden aspects of godliness and the revealed aspects of godliness, and that should be recognizable by us, which is part of the story of Purim. So we have the Megillah being able to be read on the 11th up to the 15th, and this indicates to us that the ultimate purpose of our service is that we should reveal godliness and bring it from the hidden to the revealed state. Now, we have a verse in the Torah which tells us that Hashem says that the nation of Amalek, which is the nation which cools down the attitude of represented by the nation of Amalek, which is to cool down the enthusiasm of a purpose of the enthusiasm of the Jewish nation. It says in relationship to that Hashem says that my name is not complete. My name will not be complete till there will be an eradication of the nation of Amalek. Meaning to say that there cannot be a full revelation of godliness in the world till the feeling and attitude that's represented by Amalek is eradicated. The feeling and attitude related to Amalek is the one which removes or separates the behavior of a person when separates the person from actualizing and doing the good deeds in the best way a person should. So talking this through, we have as we've just discussed, and we have a representation that when we think of an idea or when we want to do an activity, we first think about this idea, think about its details, we reveal it in our own brain, we have an idea about it, we try to make the details a little bit concrete in our own mind. We try to then get ourselves aroused to do something, and then eventually we actually do something. That activities which I just enumerated, the first idea, the bringing it out into some detail in your brain, understanding how you might implement it, and then the actual doing within the realm of Kabbalah, we represent those 4 stages in the 4 letters of God's name. The first letter, Yud, represents just a small dot. That is the first idea that we might want to implement. The next letter, which is Hey, that's an expansion of a dot. So that's the idea that the idea becomes a little bit more solidified in our brain, and we think about the details and how we're going to implement it. The next letter of God's name, the Vav, is a single stroke which goes from the top to the bottom, representing how this idea, which came from a seminal idea of the Yud and the Hey in our brain, puts together and marshals all our own energies ready to actually do something. And then the last Hey represents the actual deed of doing it. Now, in the spiritual worlds and in Kabbalah mapping, what we talk about is that we talk about the 10 spherot, the 10 spheres, which this is part of the process where how God brings down his spiritual energies into our existence. At first, there's the level of the Yud, the first aspect of Hashem's name, the first revelation of God's benefits into the world. It then gets mapped out into the letter Hey. From then on, it traverses through the 7 or the 6 middays, the six attributes which in Kabbalah terminology we call about the 6 emotions, and then the last one, the actual deed, bringing it out to fruition, is the level of Malchus, which is the final Hey. So we talk about that in all the spiritual worlds, of which we talk of 4, there is the name of God in each of those spiritual worlds, and Hashem's spiritual benefits flows down through this process of the 4 letters of Hashem's name. And in fact, that's why man has this same process, because God has embedded that system within our souls and has embedded that system with our own viewpoints and implementations of the world. Coming back to Purim, we don't necessarily understand or see or feel all of those processes, but now that we talk about it, we can understand that they exist and that they are there. Some might be quicker, some might be longer, but that process is the process whereby there's the influence of something coming from an idea into its actual fruition. Similarly, so from the spiritual realms down into the physical worlds. What's the role of a Molech? What is the role, the spiritual counterpart of the Amalek nation. They were the people that, as the Jews came out of Egypt, and it was known to the world that great miracles happened to them as they were coming out of Egypt. Nevertheless, they came and fought against the Jews, and our sages give an example that they were the people who, even though they recognized that there was godliness attached to the Jewish people, they nevertheless, because of their hatred towards spiritual things to God, they came and cooled down. They came and attacked the Jews, thereby cooling down their enthusiasm for the realms of spirituality. What this means in our days and our lives is that when we have some activities that we might want to do, specifically we want to learn Torah mitzvahs, the spirit of Amalek comes and tries to make a division between the good thoughts that want to implement to the actual point of actually doing something. And that can be done in many different ways. One simple idea of Amalek would be to cool a person down in their enthusiasm by when a person thinks of a good activity that what he should do. Person wants to help another Jew in some sort of financial way, then the Amalek thoughts or a Moloch representation can come into a person's brain and say, oh, that person, why would you want to help that person? That person did X, Y, Z, and he's not so, oh, that person is not so deserving. Maybe another person is deserving, or a better person, or other person, and takes away the enthusiasm. This is what Amalek did. Amalek broke the connection between the Yud Hey Vav Hey dissemination of godliness into the world by coming in and cooling off the enthusiasm, by somehow making a break point between the Yud Hey Vav Hey combination in the spiritual world. So Hashem in the passage of the verse, when it talks about that that Hashem cannot, his name is not complete while Amalek exists, in a spiritual sense, means that we can't have that 4-letter combination of God. That is the Seder Ishtalshalos. That is the idea of the flow of the benefits of Hashem all the way into the world, while this Amalek trait still exists. And even though there might be and could be a full union, that union, if Amalek is allowed to somehow progress its point, that union will not be complete. There might be a union, and it might be joined to some extent, but it's not complete. It's not total. It's not an absolute union. So Hashem says that in order for us to join the Yud Hey and the Vav Hey, the good thoughts to the actual implementation, driving it to the last point, that is with the eradication of the thoughts of Amalek. Now, why do we speak about Amalek in the time of Purim? Because Haman was from the progeny of Amalek. He came and he wanted to break through and break the Jewish nation. In fact, he wanted to eradicate the Jewish nation. And the word Amalek actually has got a a grammatical or a word association that you can understand that Amalek, what Amalek has got a connection to is to the, if you move the words around, you get to the idea of a malika, and a malika is a process of cutting something off. You chop the head, in terms of one of the ways. In one of the ways of killing an animal is you slice the head off. That is, that's called, like the idea of malika in Hebrew. So this idea is that Amalek comes and chops off the head, the yud or the hey, the spiritual side of things from the actual implementation, and wants to sever them. So what is our job? Our job is to bring back that union, to eradicate Haman, eradicate Amalek, from our lives. And this idea is the idea of joining the name of God and making it complete. So we started when we started our discussion, or we said that the idea of the Megillah needs to be read, can be read from the Yud Aleph from the day 11 to the day 15, and its purpose is to have a revelation of God. In spiritual terms, it is to draw down the spiritual effluence through from Hashem all the way down to its final completion. This is the idea of joining the Yud Hey and the Vav Hey, and joining the Yud, joining the letters to the letter of God's name. That is, having God's name visible and complete in the spiritual worlds and in our life, in our own neshama, in our own spirit, that we draw down Hashem, but in a complete way, not allowing the Amalek to come in. And so therefore this is the idea of that we're able to read the Megillah, we're able to draw down, or to be able to read the Megillah from Yud Aleph from the 11th to the 15th, meaning we can draw down God's influence all the way through the period of Megillah by implementing and by doing all the good deeds that we do, and this is the ultimate victory over Amalek. Once we eradicate the Amalek in our lives, then we draw down and make a revelation of godliness all through our lives, and we have an idea that Amalek itself, we can do one part of it, and that is, we can eradicate Amalek from our lives, but notwithstanding that, we ask Hashem to be able to continue that work and to eradicate Amalek in a spiritual sense, and his influence will be totally to the influence of the Amalekite nation. Even though they don't exist in a physical sense anymore, they exist in a spiritual sense. Now, the total eradication of Amalek is a two-part job. One part of that job is what we do, and then there also is the part of what Hashem does. In the times of Mashiach, and the ultimate time of King Mashiach, of our Messiah, Hashem will come and will eradicate the Amalek from the world, and then there will be, as in the period of Amalek, we will see godliness revealed everywhere in the world, and we will perceive godliness, and we will understand godliness, and we'll perceive godliness. So that's a teaching which relates to Megillah. But I want to take this just one step further. And the next step that I want to take it to is and present this idea is that an interesting statement is made about Purim, and that is that the festival of Purim will, even in the times of the Messiah, the festival of Purim will still exist. The other festivals will pale in insignificance in relationship to Megillah. This is a very wondrous statement. Megillah, we don't have the name of God revealed. The going out of Egypt, Pesach, etc. We see godliness hand in it. We talk about it. We talk about it always. So why should it be that the miracles of Megillah will be so outstanding that we'll be talking about it? We'll be talking about it even in the future, in the times of the Messiah. And to briefly answer that, we express this as the idea that that because throughout the Megillah God was hidden, nevertheless the Jews stood up and went through their own self-sacrifice for the purposes of continuing with God. We are required, and we go to a state, to a place of recognition that's so high, so recognition of godliness that is so high, it goes even beyond any sort of revelation that Hashem gave us before. And because that is such a miraculous state, we will be able to continue in the times of the Messiah to go even higher and higher in a state of what we call Adar Yoda, revelation that we don't understand. And we'll stop it at that. Have a good evening.